Discovery call is where the money is at. This is where the deal closes. And on today's episode, we're going to talk all about disco, all about the disco, and how you can make sure you're having effective discovery calls and how these discovery calls can turn into deals and money. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast. I'm your host, Donald C. Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, I have an amazing guest. His name is Matthew Wolach. Matthew and I had a conversation not only about the disco, but a lot of it was about the discovery call of the sales process and how important this is. He has a 4-step method that he's utilized not only to help his own pipeline as an individual seller, but also his friends and his clients, and then also his organization. And he's exited, I think, like 3 times companies. And dude knows what he's talking about. So this breakdown, this framework is not difficult. It's simple, and it can help you no matter what you're selling. If this is your first time listening to our podcast, please subscribe because we're going to notify you every time we drop a new piece of content, just like this one. We're dropping it like it's hot. So as we dive in, you get a chance to hear the 4-step process. I won't tell you what it is yet, and you'll see how you can apply it to your process. Please, if you haven't done so already, make sure to share this episode with somebody. It's good, as you're going to see as we dive in. It's real good. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Donald. Happy to be here, my man.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation because especially as leaders, when we are trying to guide our team and help them, especially in the climate that we're in right now, to be more effective and to be able to improve their closing, we know that there's ways you can get your team aligned, and there are unconventional ways that we can go about doing this. So I'm really looking forward to tapping into that portion here with you for the next 20 minutes. But before we dive in, I bragged about you a little bit in a teaser. Why don't you give us a little bit more about what you do, Matt?
Yeah, thank you. So I started out in software a long time ago, getting closer to 20 years now. And which makes me sound old. In my early days trying to sell, it was a struggle and really couldn't figure out what to do. Even though I had some sales experience prior, none of it really applied to what I was doing in software. And so I had to kind of learn on my own and try and figure it out. And fortunately, I was able to put together a process. Took years for it to happen and years for us to take off, but that company did take off. It eventually exited for quite a nice number. Decided that was fun. Started another company, exited that one as well, and had a few people saying, "Hey, Matt, like it looks like you're doing great. Can you tell us the secret? What's going on?" And I just said, "Hey, I just kind of follow this process, and it works great. You should do it too." And so after doing that a few times, my friends, they would go off and have success. And I realized this is fun. Like I get energy from helping people understand how to improve. And so I decided to make that a full-time thing. And now I'm a software sales coach who helps people understand how to close more deals, how to get more revenue per deal, how to make those deals happen faster. And it's super fun when somebody emails me and says, "Matt, that little thing you told me just closed us 3 deals. Thank you so much." It's so cool. I love it.
Like it's just so rewarding, man. It's just kind of like some people, I mean, money is good, right? It's obviously we're in business. We want to earn income. But there's something rewarding at just like when you can just see like this little thing that I shared or this strategy is like helping someone else that you don't even know. They just like, or know well, like a best friend, but it's like they find it in a stranger to help them. So that's really dope, man.
Yeah,
and this is why I wanted to talk to you about it. Like, I feel like you probably have like a plethora of these, and we may have to have Matt like back on like another episode. But closing is it's one of those places, those areas where many salespeople have a difficulty, and especially as organizations, oftentimes they don't have systems to be able to close consistently. I would love for you to just give me a preface on some of the challenges you're seeing right now with organizations in this environment. Sellers are facing before they apply your stuff, but just the economic, just the environment. What are closing challenges you're seeing right now?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's really frustrating if you're an AE or even an SE and you're getting into a role and you're new in the role. And I can tell you the people that are in those roles that I talk to, they feel like they didn't get enough support from their organization. And that's kind of the way it is right now in tech. You just hire a bunch of people, kind of throw them to the wolves, say, good luck, here's some things. Oh, here's a folder on the drive that has all the stuff. Good luck, hope it works. And why don't you just watch a few of our calls, then maybe it'll work for you. And that's not enough. We're not giving them enough to give them that success. And by the way, the reason I'm kind of pandering this is I'm thinking about my own experience. I did this myself with my first hire in my company. I'm like, hey, here you go do it. And realized like I completely failed the guy and he had no chance. And it was really frustrating for him. It was really frustrating for me. And so if you're in a sales role, it likely feels like your organization isn't giving you enough support and you kind of have to learn on the fly. And it's really frustrating. So from both perspectives, if you're in that sales role, make sure to soak up as much as possible and learn as much as possible and kind of help your organization understand that you need more support, you need more guidance, you need more of a process to be able to follow. And if you're a leader in the organization, create that process, have that documented, show them exactly what works, exactly what doesn't. And the organizations that have that kind of a structure in place, it's so much easier for them to scale. And those are the ones that I see that actually take off, because once they put that process in place, make it very clear of exactly how to run the process for the salespeople, man, it just becomes like everything's so consistent. Each salesperson's able to hit their marks. Each person's able to get the deals in and great revenue. And it's so much fun for everybody, leadership and individual contributors, when it works. So absolutely have a process in place.
So now let's say I'm a leader. I'm listening to this episode and I'm like, okay, I get you, Matt. I know we need to have a process. I just don't know what a process is that's going to work to help my team close. It's tough right now. And we're trying, my team just want a discount. And I'm busier than ever before. But what does a good process look like, or where should I even start with this? This is your baby. This is your world, Matt.
Yeah, I love this stuff. By the way, I'm glad you asked that, Donald, because I get so like hyped up about it. But I also was asking that same exact question. I was like, well, what do I would love to teach the next person I bring in some sort of process, but how do I do that? And so I had to come up with that process myself, and I basically took it from all sorts of sales experts and seminars I attended, all these things, and kind of made it fit for exactly what we were trying to do. And it turns out it works for a lot of people. And right now I coach more than 270 different companies around the world, and they're all using it, and it's going great. So what is that process? I call it the perfect deal process, DEAL. And that's an acronym that stands for something. So D stands for discovery. We have to understand who our buyer is. Who is this person in front of us? What do they care about? What do they hate? What are they hoping for? What keeps them up at night? We really have to understand everything about them so we know how to approach them. First, we got to know that if they're a fit, first of all. But once we know they're a fit, we have to make sure we get them realizing how tough their situation is, how bad their situation is. For example, most sellers right now, they're only using discovery to find fit. Well, here's the problem with that. If you're an experienced seller, the problem lies in that you will eventually know exactly what the problems are with your prospect after they say 3 words, because you've seen it all. You've seen all the struggles. You've talked to so many people. You have what's called the curse of knowledge. The curse of knowledge means you know so much about what you're doing, about your industry, about your product, that you already know their problems. You already understand it, even when they take their first breath on the call. And that's a great thing to know. However, discovery is equally as important for the buyer as it is for you. So just knowing the fit is
Can you repeat that one more time for the people in the back?
Yeah. Discovery is equally as important for your buyer as it is for you. And here's why. Knowing your fit is great, but actually there are studies that show other things need to happen. For example, in discovery is your first chance to really connect on a personal level with the buyer based on how you act, the questions you ask. All those things matter, and your buyer can feel like you get them. And if they feel like you understand them, like you get them, they're going to be wanting to follow you and want to be a part of whatever you're doing. The next thing is you can show them you know what you're talking about. So in discovery, and we know that we try to get trust. We try to build trust with our buyers. And that starts right at the beginning of your marketing funnel. But even on the sales call, if we can build that trust, how do we do it? A lot of people try to say, oh, we have these amazing companies that already trust us and use us. And I've been in the industry for so long. But actually, you can build trust even if you're only asking questions, even if in discovery, you're only asking questions, because if you're in a certain industry, the questions you ask, if you know the industry, those questions are going to be fine-tuned to that industry. They're going to have lingo that everybody in that industry uses, the verbiage, the things you talk about, the things you ask, and even diving into their answers and asking follow-up questions. Only an expert in the industry would know to do that. And so they will know you get what you're talking about. You know what you're talking about just by how you handle the questions you ask. You don't have to say, I'm amazing, I'm great at this. But the last thing, Donald, is the most important reason why you need to do discovery. It's because most buyers will start the call and you'll say, hey, what do you need? Well, I just saw you have something. I just want to see if this is going to fit for us. That's not great. That's not a good buying position. That's not somebody who's like, I'm going to buy this right away. No, they're just kind of kicking tires. What we need to do is get the buyer to realize how bad their situation is, how tough things are. If they don't think their current process or their current problem is terrible, they're never going to take enough action and leave that process. So part of discovery is us getting them to realize that things are terrible and they must make a switch. See, the problem is when we get a no from a prospect, 80% of the no's we get, they did not switch to a competitor. 80% of the no's we get, they actually did nothing. They took no action. They stood still. So our number one challenge is actually not try to beat the competitor, but just get the prospect to realize they need to move and do something. And this is a big part of it. If we can get the buyer to realize they're in a bad situation and that thing that they're doing every day, they actually don't have to do, and they're wasting a lot of time and losing money or resources for it. Well, if we can get them to realize that, then they're going to be much more likely to want to take action. How do we do this? It's a tactic that we use. It's called twist the knife. Twisting the knife means let's make sure that if a buyer voices a pain, we don't just say, oh, it's okay, no worries, which is what we're taught throughout society. And that's how we're supposed to act. And that's great. Keep doing that elsewhere in your world. In sales, don't do that. We need them to realize it's bad. You be a consultant. Help them understand things are terrible. Because if they don't, they're never going to want to change. And so if we can do this and kind of twist the knife and ask follow-up questions like, well, what has that meant to you? How about you personally? Does this mean you're not getting home to the wife and kids at night and able to have dinner? Does this mean that your team doesn't feel empowered? Does this mean that you don't feel empowered from your higher ups? Understand by diving in, twisting the knife, getting them really feeling the pain. And once they do, they're going to be much more likely to take action. For example, one of my clients, Greg, he came to me with a 1.9% close rate on his demos. That's from demo. From talking to people, having conversations, closing only 1.9%. You can imagine how frustrated he was. This guy was really emotional about this problem. We understood that, and I kind of dove in and understood that his real issue was discovery. He really wasn't getting people worked up. He knew his industry so well that he was barely doing any discovery because he found out they were a fit quickly. And so once we fixed that and got him to really dive in and really twist the knife on some of these answers that he was getting, he improved that discovery process so well. In fact, he got his close rate from 1.9% to over 30% in a very competitive industry. Yes, more than 10x. And he says his buyers are 90% closed after discovery. He's not even told them anything about the company or the product. He says they're basically ready to go. And that's because he got them so worked up and so frustrated about their current problem. And they see him as an expert because of how he walked them through getting to that point. He's a consultant. They're going to follow him. And he's doing it great. The perfect analogy for this that makes it clear, because people are like, really? Can it really happen? Well, let's say that your prospect, they're crawling through a desert, right? They're going through the desert. Things are terrible. It's really hot, sand everywhere. They're dry and they're like, oh, and they realize it's really bad. Things are terrible and they're going to die if nothing happens. And along rides up somebody on a horse and they come up and they say, whoa, it looks like you're in pretty bad shape. Would you like some water? Well, that person's not going to say, well, I do need water, but is it filtered? I only drink filtered. Is it mountain spring water? Because that's all No, they're going to say, yes, give me the water. And that's exactly what we can do in sales. We can get them realizing things are bad. And oh yeah, we have a product. People get a lot of benefit from it. You want it? Yeah, great. Give me, you got it. Okay, cool. Let's just do it. And that's
So
how we
here's
can
the
do it.
question, because here's where I'm sure sellers come back in, because we're on the same school of thought with discovery. I really do feel the deal closes in the disco, but how? And again, my role here is to make sure I push back against you, right? Make a good
Love
interview.
it. Love it.
But how do you do this without making it the buyers not see that? Okay, I know what you're trying to do, Matt. Like I'm a seasoned buyer. I've been in this industry. I bought multiple softwares before. How do I come across without making it too gimmicky? If I'm making sense.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Two things. Number
Mm-hmm.
one, if they are a buyer, even if they're a seasoned seller, one of the oldest sales sayings is the toughest person to sell is a salesperson, right?
Uh-huh.
Because they know all the moves, they know all the tactics. But I actually think that saying is not complete. I think that the toughest person to sell with bad sales is a salesperson. But the easiest person to sell with great sales is a salesperson, because they recognize that you are good at your craft and you've put a lot of work into it. And if that's the case, then everything else must have also had a lot of work put into it. The product, the team, the service, all of that stuff. And so salespeople who recognize good sales, I've found that they are actually more likely to buy when they do. And in fact, when I do this to my prospects coming to work with me, I absolutely am twisting the knife on them. And two things happen. Number one, they get super emotional, and emotional is where people make decisions. And number two, they say, teach me how to do what you're doing to me because I feel it. So they're literally telling me, I feel this. You need to show me how you're doing this. And they sign up and I show them and they go out and crush it. So
Okay.
it's totally okay to quote unquote use a tactic. I will tell you that typically only salespeople recognize it. Other people, experienced buyers even, usually don't. And they don't fully understand, because again, if you're doing this the right way, all you're doing is helping them uncover stuff that they hadn't seen yet in their own process or their own company. And it becomes something that they see you as that expert who's helped them do that. And somebody who's helped them, they're going to want more help. And that's one of the biggest things. I think you and I talked about this before.
Yeah.
In sales, the best thing to do is help. Help, don't sell, and you're going to sell a lot.
I love it. I know we don't have enough time to get through everything, but do you mind telling us what the EAL is?
Yes. Okay. So we've got the perfect deal process. D is discovery. E is educate. We need to educate our buyers. Several things we need to educate them on. As many people know, if you educate your buyers, they're going to be more likely to stick around and more likely to close with you. Number 3A is associate. That's where you can associate your product or service to what you learned in discovery. So what they are struggling with. So based on the challenges they have, based on the goals that they have, we need to connect our tool or our solution to that and show them exactly how they're going to solve those things. That's associate. And the last one is lead. Not so much as generating leads, but meaning take the lead, take charge. Be in control of the entire process. Don't let them control it, because they have no idea how to buy your software. They've never done it before. Make sure you are the one guiding them through exactly what should happen at every stage. And if you can do these 4 things, you're going to see outstanding results. One of my clients, Robbie, actually just told me they went from an 18% close rate to 67% close rate.
What?
They're closing 2 out of every 3 demos they talk to at $20,000 a clip. So if you know how to do this right, it works great.
Come on, man. Money in the bank. Why would this not work? This process. Why would this not work?
It doesn't work if you don't commit to it. If you don't believe in it and you just say, well, let's try pieces of it or parts of it, you've got to do the process. And you've got to make sure the whole team, go back to the very beginning we talked about, you've got to make sure the whole team is aligned and following the process. And if you do, you can start to see your whole team rising, everybody doing great things. It's really cool. One of my clients, Elaine, she was super frustrated because her company had a better product, but was losing to the competition. And when we looked at it, their calls were absolutely way off the rails. And she would have some reps who were doing okay, some were terrible. They went from an 11% close rate. Once they implemented this, they're now at 39% close rate, almost 4x their close rate as a team. And everybody's very consistently hitting those numbers.
I love this, man. This is so simple, so powerful, but time and time again could work. if you apply. And what I love about the part that you shared is the consistency. Don't piecemeal it. And I've seen many of us have done it. We read a book and we're like, oh man, chapter 1 was really cool, but then don't do chapter 2 to 10, and then next thing you know, it's like, how come it didn't work? That concept doesn't make sense. But it's not that it didn't make sense, it's because you didn't work, and you didn't do it. So I really love that consistency. This is great. Let's say, for instance, Matt, that I'm interested in this stuff and I want to learn about it, I want to apply it. Where do I go? Do I hit you up on LinkedIn? Do I send a letter in a mail, like email? How do I get in touch with you to make this happen?
Yeah, LinkedIn is great. I'm very active there. So Matt Wolach, WOLACH. You can also go to mattwolach.com, MATTWOLACH. And I actually have some free giveaways on there. For one, I have a scorecard. So if you are like, hey, he's talking about close rates, I don't even calculate my close rate. I have a sales scorecard where you can go download that and calculate your close rate right away. It'll tell you exactly what you're doing, along with other really important KPIs and metrics. And then it'll show you how you compare to benchmarks and where you should be. And each number is made automatically red or green. This is a totally free thing. Just grab it and it'll tell you where you need to improve. So it makes it really easy to start managing.
This is dope. Guys, get the free gift. Find more information about it. We got it right there in the show notes as well. Matt, thank you for coming on the show today. Appreciate this.
Thanks, Donald. Yeah, this was a bunch of fun, man.
See, I told you. Matt knows what he's talking about. DEAL. That's what it's talking about, baby. So go ahead and check out that process. What I liked about it, one of the things he says was around that, many of us as salespeople, we mess up on the disco. Not only the fact that we're not doing the follow-up questions, but the fact is that we're not twisting the knife enough. We're not going deep enough. And 80% of 80% of those deals that are not progressing, they're not doing anything because the salespeople are just not getting them to step up to the plate. So I love what Matt had to share, and I encourage you to go follow him. He's on LinkedIn. Speaking about following, we have some amazing things from our sponsors that can really help you. So if you haven't done so already, check out our sponsors, connect with them, and tell them you found them here on the Sales Evangelist Podcast. And check with Matt and the free gifts that he has to offer. I mean, it's like there's a link down below in the show notes. It's like plethora of stuff. So it's good. Matt, appreciate you. As always, our podcast is designed for individuals like you who are trying to 3 to 5x their sales pipeline with quality opportunities. They're trying to increase their close rate. And if you need help on that, you should check out our mastermind, where sellers like you come together. We ask, we play, we role play, we practice, we break down your process, we listen to tape, and we figure out ways that we can help you to improve. And would love to have you. As always, you can find all the details about the mastermind in the show notes, or you can go to thesalesevangelist.com/mastermind and apply for our next group. I want you to thrive. I want you to succeed. But most importantly, I want you to raise your level of thinking. Go out and do big things. See you in the next one.